I've been a troublemaker, I've been a late-night player, I've been broke as a joke, I've been a money maker, I've been a record breaker, taking credit as an educator. I've been known to spit the flows and make it shaky, shaky thing. Popping, lock, and stop and let it hang. Watch us as we drop this hip-hop, it's like it stings. We make a whole room drop and everybody sing. We want the funk, we gotta have that funk. We kick it old school, we think we're so cool. We take it back to the past, we gonna act a fool.
View. I am your host, Scott D. Lewis, here live in studio, Comcast Cable, Channel 23, downtown Danbury, Connecticut, on this January 16th. The winter squall. This seems to be becoming a regular thing. These winter squalls just pop up out of nowhere. They're unannounced. It's like sunny out, and all of a sudden, like clouds. And today, it seemed like more of a hail thing than snow.
We had like almost like marble-sized hail.
Yeah, it was interesting. But this is like a regular occurrence now, these white squalls. Although we didn't get the phone blowing up with the notification about it today.
No,
so I guess
know.
It's becoming so regular that they're not even letting us know anymore it's coming.
Very
interesting.
It's been weird. We've had some interesting, last weekend was in the 60s.
Well, 68 degrees on Sunday in Bridgeport, which was an all-time high for the month of January in Connecticut. Previous record, 55.
Right.
That shatters that record.
Oh, yeah.
I'm surprised by that. I still want to do some research to see if I read that correctly, but that's what I saw listed.
It was nice walking around in a T-shirt for during the month of January.
Yeah. Weather was really nice, but big winds dropping today or out there right now, and temperatures dropping overnight. Going to be bitter cold tomorrow, I have a feeling.
I was already out doing fire police today. We had
with the winds?
We had a tree down on wires out on down off of King Street area.
Well, we hear him, and we just saw him for a brief second. Let's say hello officially. My right-hand man, Mr. Bob Broad Jr.
Hi, Scott.
Besides already having to be out, how you doing there?
All right. It was just crazy weather today. It was like 45 degrees at around noontime, and all of a sudden, this out of the blue, it started started hailing.
So we'll see what happens, and there's potential for some snow Saturday, but it could be more of a rain event, I think.
They're not saying much. They're saying like 1 to 3 inches, so it's
quickly turning to rain, depending where you are in the state. So
hopefully, and the temperatures are supposed to stay around a little above freezing, so hopefully it won't be too much icing.
We are live until 7:30. 203-792-4101 is the number. We're live on Facebook. I don't have the in-studio iPad out here again. We keep messing that up. How's your show going lately, Bob? Spotlight on Tuesday nights at 9, Wednesdays at 12?
I mean, I got a couple things still going. I got next week I got the 74th anniversary of the end of World War II coming up. So,
oof! I told you I watched that whole series on the great events of World War II on Netflix. But yeah, that seems to be a hot topic these days. People doing war stuff. Oscar nominations announced. 1917, I think, got nominated. I got to get out and see that.
I mean, I think there's only a handful of people left, that are still surviving from that.
Speaking of the Oscars, I should probably just go ahead and announce it. They're super early this year.
Yeah.
I heard from the former Evil director, Mr. Kevin Gallagher.
Who is hosting this year?
That's a good question. I don't know who the host is. Wow. I got to look into it because I will be back on his show. Remember last year we had him come in here.
You haven't
and
done
we did
those.
the preview and the recap.
Right.
This year I'm going back on his show. He shoots it at in a different location now and brings it in. So I'll be going to his home studio, I guess it is.
Yeah, I caught some of his show yesterday with Kevin Sorbo. So
it was that the actor that I was on. And he's doing an hour show now instead of a half hour. He changed his length of his show. And he's going to have me on at the end of the month, and we will preview the Oscars, and then we're talking about whether or not, I think we'll probably have him come here and do another show for the recap of the Oscars instead of me going to him to do a second show.
That sounds like a good idea.
So we'll have him come in and do a little recap. All right, Tyler's back on audio. He, dogged us last week. He missed his chance to do the scores. Now he's got to feel the pressure because, let's face it, I did a great job with those scores last week.
Yes, I know you did.
I mean, I don't know if Tyler saw the show last week, but I really think I delivered that.
Yes,
so now he's got some pressure. People know what this new bit is, and they've heard me do it.
And
so Tyler's got to come out here and really,
I already gave my condolences on his Saints not making.
Of course, the real reason he wasn't here was because his Saints lost. But this is the way it is. The show must go on. But he's here. We'll have him out in a little bit to do the scores of the week. And, of course, El Diablo, DJ Malo, a.k.a. Darkness, David Suero, directing the show. MLB, we don't really like to do off-season topics on most sports.
This is a hot and heated
But unfortunately,
subject.
we really got to get a little bit into this. So, we wondered what would happen with this sign-stealing thing. And the hammer has fallen on the whole net. They pulled the whole net in, really. So first, the Astros, it's announced that Hinge and the GM are suspended for a year, and within about an hour, the team announces that they have fired both of those guys. And it's also announced as that investigation comes out that Cora and Beltran are active participants in the sign stealing. And the Red Sox didn't wait for the investigation into what maybe they did. We don't know yet. We haven't seen that investigation result. And he's gone.
Yeah.
So Cora is gone. And now today, a couple hours ago, it is reported that Beltran is stepping down before managing any games at all for the Mets. So a lot of teams all of a sudden looking for new managers.
Now, I'm just wondering, how many other players are in that report?
Well, they didn't specifically name any players besides Beltran, who was a player with the Astros at the time. They said that he was the ringleader of the banging of the cans and that whole thing. They did say it was a player-driven thing, but they hold the teams and the front offices accountable. No players suspended at all. They say it's got to come from the top, and they get down. So, when this thing broke, I said basically I thought it was a big deal because the Yankees were the ones who lost all these years.
Right.
3 times to the Astros, including most recently this past year. Last year to the Red Sox.
Right.
And I think, they're the ones that probably are like, what's going on out there in Houston? We're tired of losing to them. And, we also got beat up by our rival, the Red Sox. So I don't know if that's the case.
Well, let's put it this way. The Red Sox-Yankee rivalry has been going for over 100 and some years.
Yeah.
So that's not, I don't really think that really had any bearing.
Who knows? I don't know. But it is worth noting that other players in the league have stated that the Yankees and the Dodgers, and it's also reported elsewhere by media reports, that the Diamondbacks, the Indians, the Brewers, the Rangers, the Cubs, the Blue Jays, the Nationals, more than a third of the league has been reported one way or the other, either by players in the league or reporters doing due diligence, saying that they have all used electronic devices to steal signs. My take on it is that sign stealing is part of the game.
Right.
Unfortunately, now these teams get caught up in, basically what took place with the Patriots and Spygate.
Right.
It had been common practice for teams to film sideline activities.
Well,
the league decided they didn't want that anymore, and they put in a rule saying you couldn't do it. Mangini said the Patriots were still doing it in that first year of the rule in week 2, and they got, they busted them for that, and they made them the example. So going forward, they could get away from that sort of electronic use and spying. And now in baseball, they've got these monitors right inside, the hallway behind the dugout.
Oh, yeah.
Because of replay, and players are going to that and using it.
Well, the bad part is there's so many different camera angles on a...
Right. And with the advent of, with the
high
analytics...
technology now,
it's all technology, all analytics, all stat-driven. They've got cameras everywhere. And everybody's starting to use it, and they want to make an example of somebody. And why not, go for the winners, have them take a fall, because that's who everybody else wants to get at, because they lost to these teams.
I mean, they have, there's even cameras from off the catchers.
Right, and they're talking about having an earpiece now between the catcher and the pitcher for signs, which, that means somebody can radio into them something.
Right. I mean, which is
from
easy.
elsewhere.
I mean, you can tap into anybody's communications.
So as they're trying to get away from technology, they're talking about bringing more technology in.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about Cora, and he really gets to be the main scapegoat, I think. Beltran gets wiped out as well. But, Hinge gets fired and everybody says,
right,
shocking, I can't believe they fired him. I'm sure he'll get a job. The reports come in that Cora is involved and people start writing, he needs to be banned from the sport for life.
Yeah, but
I've seen those reports out there. Why? What is the difference? Why is he, and this brings me back to another point which I was furious about last year, why was he singled out when he chose not to go to the White House?
Right.
So many teams, so many players, so many managers, so many executives have skipped that visit during this tenure. Why did he get singled out and that become a thing? And they tried to rip the Red Sox apart over it and say it was causing trouble in the locker room, which was untrue.
Right.
Why did he get singled out then, and why does he get singled out more so now? He's not a white manager.
Right.
And there was the whole thing with Puerto Rico, and he stood up as a humanitarian for his country and did great work. He got down there in the country and helped physically with his own two hands. He wasn't just talking and doing things from up north. He went back to his country and helped in that recovery. So I don't know. I think it's worth pointing out that he was singled out as really the only person I know of that was a story for not going to the White House, and now he's being castigated even more so than Hinge and whatnot. Even though Hinge was the manager, right?
Right.
And it was a player-driven thing.
Yeah.
But Cora is the guy that everybody thinks should be banned, or not everybody, but it has been reported by people writing columns saying he should be banned for life. I think that's curious.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see how this turns out more and more within the next couple of weeks, probably.
Well, now, I mean, it'll be about coaching searches.
You got to figure pitchers and catchers report in the second week of February.
Yeah, so these guys got to make some coaching decisions quick. All right, let's move on to the actual games. That's enough about that. College football, we have a new national champion.
Yeah, I like you watched the first part of this.
I watched the first half of the game, and I felt like at that point it was over. Clemson did come back to cut it to 28-25, so I'm sure there was some tension in that second half for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I did hear there was a bogus pass interference play that didn't get reported on too much. That really helped LSU repad that lead. But the bottom line is, after being up 17-7,
right.
And I think it's also worth noting at this point, why did Clemson celebrate so wildly after going up 17-7? It's not like they haven't been there before. They've won 2 titles. They know it's a full game. I was dumbfounded by the fact that the celebration is one thing.
Right.
But then they kick the ball off. Dabo Sweeney, the head coach, is out he's on the back by the benches, still high-fiving and fist-bumping his players, his offense, while LSU is going right down the field, and he's not even watching.
Oh no, he thought the game was over.
They completed that second bomb because they had already completed one early in the game to get themselves into it, and he wasn't even watching.
No.
I couldn't believe that. I thought that was shocking. And I thought really key was the fact that in the first quarter, Clemson, had great field position. They had the ball inside LSU's territory 3-4 times, and they only came away with that one score, 7 points. And they should have been up by 14. And their defense played great to start the game, but they didn't score enough points early. And then LSU had the quick strike for the 50-yard touchdown or so. And then they answered the touchdown to make it 17-7 with another big 50-yard pass play or so. And then they put it right in. And they ended up going up at halftime 28-17. And they outscored them 35-7 or something, or 8 after the 17-7 start. So first loss in Trevor Lawrence's career, quarterback for Clemson, 29 straight wins, including a title last year, and he finally tastes defeat. Joe Burrow, the Heisman winner, goes 15-0 this season. Sets a record for 60 touchdowns. That's the most in college football history. LSU, most points scored in a season, 726. In the game, he goes 31 for 49, 463 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown.
Right.
Huge performance. So that was it. LSU gets it done, and they get their title. So that's it for Clemson's run, but they'll retool, I'm sure, and we'll see what LSU does, as Burrow will now be the number 1 pick going back. He's an Ohio kid, and he'll probably get drafted by the Bengals, right? Speaking of the NFL, and I will mention, of course, when we talk Clemson, my niece and her now husband did go to Clemson. My dad, of course, lives down in that area, about 10 minutes away from the stadium, and he goes to all the games. So they were all pulling for him. I knew they were in trouble, though, after that rally in the first half, and that was that. Chiefs, speaking of rallies and speaking of a Clemson quarterback, because he's the quarterback for the Texans, Deshaun Watson, up 24-0 in that game. And before halftime, it was 28-24, the Chiefs rally. Unbelievable game that was, with the turnovers, the blocked punt, poor decisions by Andy Reid, putting his Tyreek Hill in to return a punt. Tyreek Hill's returned 1 punt all year, and I thought Andy Reid panicked early, down 14-0, and that almost really cost him. But the Texans made worse decisions than that. Bob, when you're up 21-0,
yes,
and you got a 4th down, and you're on the road, people are quibbling whether or not he should have gone for it on 4th and 1 there, or kicked the field goal. I thought you take the field goal, just keep adding points. But more than that, I thought, why did he lose his mind and start bringing negativity to the sideline when you're up 24-0?
Yeah, I mean, why you want to get as many points.
You want to keep the positive energy flowing. And then he decides at 24-7 to run a fake field goal on his own end down at his 30-yard line. Unreal. Bill O'Brien should have been fired at halftime. So the Chiefs rally. I was on the line texting with Kevin the entire game. He was stunned early, but there was really not much to talk about in the second half as they dominated. A 51-7 run after being down 24-0. I was with Fatty Roots' own Sugar Summers during the game. I don't know if we'll be allowed back at the meeting house, but it was ugly for him early. And
any word on any new CDs? Or?
No. But the music, we tested the CD today. We think track 1 and 2 are not skipping anymore, so hopefully we got the whole CD playing behind the show today. And the other question I have: why was Deshaun Watson smiling and having pleasantries with the opposition while they were in the midst? I mean, maybe at 24-0 you smile, but when it's now 24-21 and you're still smiling and laughing about the fact that you've just blown this lead, I thought that was interesting. Titans stun the Ravens. I did tell my boy Mike, Fatty Roots there, that I did not expect at any point, even when it was 24-0, that the Chiefs would roll over like the Ravens did. And the Ravens, make no mistake about it, rolled over against the Titans. They panicked. They had turnovers. They got completely out of their game plan. They threw the ball, 68 times in that game? And they were only down 14-6 in the second half, and they totally got away from it. Derrick Henry, 195 yards, 1 touchdown pass. How about that jump pass? Was amazing. And then, so he's on the John Riggins trajectory right now. Next week, I think I'll bring in the Riggins stats for his postseason run, but it is extremely rare for a running back to go 30-plus carries, 180-plus yards for more than 2 games in a row. He's now done it for 3. And this is Riggins, I believe, is the only guy who's ever done something like that. Can Derrick Henry do it again in the rematch with Kansas City? Remember, they played earlier this year in Mahomes' return after his injury. And Tennessee won in Kansas City 35-32 earlier this year, Bob. And we talked last week about some of the history between the old Houston Oilers and the Chiefs, and we know now the Titans are that former Oilers team.
Thank God, because I used to hate those Oiler
uniforms.
The helmets with
you didn't like those?
No, not with the oil rig on your head.
Houston Oilers, Houston Oilers. San Fran takes care of business over the Vikings. That was not much of a game.
No.
Minnesota's offense was anemic in that, and the Packers hold on. Pretty much the way you figure it, the way, that game played out the way both these teams have played all year. Green Bay doesn't really put anybody away, but their defense is solid enough, and they hold on and they win late. And Seattle has rallies where Russell Wilson just starts running around like crazy. All right, here, let's get to the history, because he's breaking in some of these pictures.
Right.
San Fran, Green Bay, 6 times previously in the playoffs. First time, 1995, Green Bay, 27-17. This was the coming out party for Green Bay.
Right.
It kind of put them on the map. San Francisco was the defending champions with Steve Young.
Steve Young era?
That was Steve Young, yep. So 95, this is the first of 4 straight matchups. 96, before they went to the Super Bowl and beat my Patriots, Green Bay beat in the divisional round. That first one was in the divisional round also. They beat San Francisco again. It wasn't the frozen tundra, it was the muddy tundra in a rainstorm in Green Bay at Lambeau, 35-14. 1997, as the defending champions, getting ready to go back to a back-to-back Super Bowl, Green Bay beats San Francisco again in the rain, this time out in the Bay. 23-10. I believe Steve Young was hurt in this game, and Green Bay beat them 23-10 in that one out in San Francisco. 1998, for the 4th straight time they play. This time Steve Young finally gets by. The Packers with a 30-27 wild card victory. That is the famous, he caught it, Owens, he caught it, Owens. And so that was that. And then 2001, they won another wild card game, Green Bay did. And 2012, the most recent, Kaepernick led the Niners past Green Bay en route to going to the Super Bowl. Let's get Tyler out here.
Tyler.
Are we really 5 minutes out already?
Yeah.
Where was the 10-minute warning?
It went away. We didn't get the 10-minute warning.
All right.
I'm going to tell David.
Well, he should have. Somebody should tell me. We'll get Tyler mic'd up as we ramble on. So San Fran at Green Bay. And remember, these two played in Week 12, Bob.
Yes, they did.
37-28. Is Tyler standing in the right spot?
Have a rematch there.
How's he looking? Is he good? All right, let's roll it.
Go
to the scores of the week. Our boy Tyler.
We have, starting off college football championship, we have LSU beating Clemson with a 42-25 win over the Clemson Tigers. And then we have the NFL divisional round games, as we have the San Francisco beating the Minnesota Vikings 27-10. It doesn't really matter to me because I don't really like both teams. Sorry.
He's going off script.
San Francisco,
He's going off script.
Minnesota fans. But then we have Tennessee thumping Baltimore 28-12. And then we have the Kansas City Chiefs as they rally against the Houston Texans 51-31. They really came back and they did really well. And then we have Green Bay as they held off Seattle 28-23. And then we have the college basketball scores as we have UConn loses double overtime thriller to Wichita State 89-86. And then we have Clemson as they score 2 upsets, knocking off North Carolina 79-76 and Duke 79-72. Number 2, Baylor beats number 6 Kansas 67-55. And then we have number 18 Seton Hall as they topped off number 5 Butler 78-70 for the top spot in the Big East. And then upsets from last night, we have Alabama 83-64 over number 4 Auburn, as South Carolina also picks up the win 81-78 over number 10 Kentucky. And then lastly, with the upsets from last night, Temple 65-53 over the number 16 Wichita State. Then we bring you over to NBA action as we have Celtics, sadly, lose their end streak at 2, and they lose to the Pistons 116-103. As the Sixers beat Kyrie and the Nets 117-106, and then the Bulls blow out the Knicks again.
What else is new?
128, I know, right? 128-102. And then we have the Magic pulling out a win out of the Lakers' hat, 119-118, that's a close game. Then we have the Grizzlies beat the Rockets for 6 straight W, 121-110. And then lastly, we have on the ice hockey action. We have the Tuukka Rask gets knocked out in Bruins, gets knocked out by the Bruins in a 3-0 loss to the Blue Jackets. After Bruins blow the 5-2 lead in 6-2 shootout, lost to the Flyers. As lastly, we have the Rangers as they smack the Islanders 6-2, and that wraps it up for our scores of the week.
Great job, Tyler.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
We'll have you back. All right. So that was the scores of the week. We only got a couple minutes or so.
We got 1 minute left.
UConn is at Villanova this week, so a little Big East preview of what will take place next year. Villanova's 13-3. UConn 1-3 in conference, 10-6 overall. I did want to give a plug to my Colorado State. We haven't mentioned them in a while.
Yeah, what's going on
3-3. They've won 3 in a row, 3-3 in conference, and 12-7 overall. Gonzaga is still the number 1 team. So the Celtics, they've been struggling a little bit lately. Kemba's been sick. You know, he's come back. Not great. I think their schedule, they've been playing every other day, so they haven't had much rest lately.
Right.
But the big topic is, will they make a trade with Detroit, who beat them last night, for another Husky, Andre Drummond? Yeah. That's big in the news now. And they got at the Bucks tonight, and they're home for the Lakers on Monday. So big games coming up for the Celtics. Kyrie surprisingly did return. I was surprised by that. Other surprises in the NHL, the Vegas fires their coach. One and a half seasons into their tenure, and they went to the Cup in the first year. They're third in the wild card spot and only 1 point out in the Pacific. So I'm a little surprised.
Well, we're almost out of time. So, have a good weekend. Hopefully, have a little snow, but
stay safe out there. Stay warm. Stay dry.
Hopefully we don't have.
Credits are rolling. We're out of here.
See you next week.
It's